Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled to guide you through our topic today because it's incredibly fascinating, deeply nuanced, and honestly, quite often completely misunderstood. Today, we're going to map out exactly what schizoid personality disorder actually is, and maybe even more importantly, what it isn't.
So think about this for a second. Why do some people choose extreme isolation? We live in a world that literally constantly demands connection, networking, and being loud and social, right? Because of that, we tend to view extreme solitude as this immediate problem that just has to be solved. We assume someone is hurting or afraid or lost. But what if extreme solitude is just a misunderstood choice? What if, for some folks out there, it's simply their natural, most comfortable state of being?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The solitude misconception. 2. Unpacking the differences. 3. Diagnosing schizoid personality disorder. 4. Pop culture parallels. 5. Navigating relationships. And finally, 6. Therapy and acceptance.
All right, jumping right into Section 1, the solitude misconception.
You know, society has this enormous amount of stigma surrounding extreme loners. We're pretty much conditioned to think that if someone prefers their own company almost exclusively, well, they must be harboring some deep, dark secret, or maybe they're just paralyzed by anxiety. But applying that assumption to everyone, it completely misses the mark. Schizoid personality disorder, or SPD, is defined by a deep, enduring preference for solitude. It is absolutely not a fear of people. This is the bedrock of understanding this whole explainer. A person with SPD isn't having a panic response. They aren't hiding away because they're terrified of being judged. They literally just prefer their own internal world. It's an orientation of profound indifference to social connection, rather than an anxious withdrawal from it.
To put this into perspective, roughly 3.1% of the general population is affected by schizoid personality disorder, so it's considered relatively uncommon. And researchers have noted it's actually slightly more common in males than in females. But honestly, what's truly captivating here isn't just the statistic itself, it's how this underlying personality structure interacts with the broader society around it. Which brings us to a really fascinating cultural phenomenon, hikikomori. This is a phenomenon over in Japan where individuals withdraw completely from society, often confining themselves indoors for months or sometimes even years at a time. Now, to be totally clear, not all hikikomori have schizoid personality disorder, but the profound social detachment and that strong preference for a solitary internal world, those are definitely shared characteristics. It just beautifully illustrates how cultural pressures and norms really shape the way social detachment is both expressed by a person and perceived by the culture they live in. Let's move on to Section 2, unpacking the differences. Because SPD heavily involves isolation, it is incredibly easy to confuse it with other well-known conditions that also feature social withdrawal. But the underlying mechanics, the actual why behind the isolation, are vastly different. Let's break this down. If someone has social phobia, the core driver there is fear. They crave connection, but they are terrified of rejection. For introversion, the driver is energy. They might enjoy socializing, but they absolutely need solitude to recharge their battery. With the autism spectrum, or ASD, the driver's neurology. They often want connection, but might struggle with the how-to of social interaction. But for schizoid personality disorder, the core driver is pure indifference. There is a genuine lack of desire for close relationships. It's not a coping strategy for fear or exhaustion, it's simply their preferred baseline.
Section 3. Diagnosing schizoid personality disorder.
Before we get into the clinical criteria from the DSM-5, I really need you to hear this crucial warning. Please, do not use this explainer to self-diagnose. I know it's incredibly tempting to hear a list of traits and think, oh wow, that's definitely me, or that sounds exactly like my sibling. But a formal diagnosis is a highly complex process. It requires thorough interviews and assessments by a qualified mental health professional, like a psychologist or psychiatrist, who can expertly differentiate between all those overlapping conditions we were just talking about.
So, according to the DSM-5, an individual typically needs to exhibit 4 or more of these specific traits for a diagnosis. First up, they neither desire nor enjoy close relationships, and yep, that actually includes being part of a family. They almost always choose solitary activities. They have little, if any, interest in sexual experiences with other people, and generally take pleasure in very few activities overall. Furthermore, they lack close friends or confidants outside of their immediate first-degree relatives. They often appear completely indifferent to the praise or criticism of others, and they show emotional coldness, or what's called a flattened affect. Remember, as we go through these, we're doing it without judgment. We're striving for empathy and trying to understand a completely different way of experiencing the world.
All right, Section 4, Pop Culture Parallels. Sometimes clinical bullet points can feel,
a bit dry or abstract, so it helps immensely to make these traits tangible by looking at how they manifest in some famous fictional characters. Take Mei Misaki from the anime Another. She is the quintessential quiet observer, perfectly content in this strange, otherworldly indifference to the social chaos all around her. She isn't isolated by fear at all. And then you have L from Death Note. His eccentricities and total lack of interest in social norms go way beyond just his detective work. He shows a really profound detachment from human connection, finding way more comfort in puzzles and sugar than in people. They aren't broken characters, they are simply operating on an entirely different social frequency.
Another fantastic example is Klaus Hargreaves from Netflix's The Umbrella Academy. Now, while Klaus is undeniably a complex character, he exhibits strong schizoid traits by finding the living deeply tedious compared to the company of ghosts. He's not anxious around people. He just prefers his alternate, solitary reality. It perfectly mirrors that profound detachment and indifference that really characterizes SPD.
Moving into Section 5, Navigating Relationships.
So, what do we actually do with this information? If you're a friend or family member trying to connect with someone who exhibits traits of schizoid personality disorder, there are a few really practical steps you can take. Step 1. Respect their space and never, ever pressure them to open up or try to guilt trip them. Their solitude is a fundamental part of who they are, not some puzzle for you to fix. Step 2. Connect on their terms. This might literally mean shared silence or a side-by-side activity. A quiet walk or just reading together in the same room can actually be a far deeper connection for them than forcing them to attend some loud party. And step 3, don't take it personally. If they cancel plans last minute or don't reply right away, it's just a regulation of their own energy, not a rejection of you.
And finally, Section 6, Therapy and Acceptance.
I really want to directly challenge a very harmful idea here: the notion that someone with schizoid personality disorder needs to be cured or fixed. The absolute goal of therapy is living authentically and facilitating understanding, not forcing some kind of cure. Therapy for someone with SPD can be incredibly valuable, but not because it's going to magically turn them into a social butterfly. Instead, it can help them articulate their needs to their family members. It helps build a bridge of communication so they can live a life of deep solitude or carefully curated connection without causing unnecessary friction with the people who love them.
Just listen to this incredibly powerful testimony from a community member who identifies with SPD. They shared, "I'm not broken, I'm just full. My own thoughts, my own world, my own quiet peace is enough. I don't need a crowd to feel alive. It's not a disorder, it's my way of being." Just sit with that for a second. That right there is the emotional core of this entire explainer. It is a plea for profound empathy and the recognition that what looks empty to a highly extroverted society is actually completely full for someone with SPD. Which brings us to one final provocative question. Can we learn to accept extreme solitude not as brokenness, but as a wonderfully different way of experiencing the world? It really is not about being wrong. It's simply about being different. For those living with it, the key is self-acceptance, and for those who love them, the absolute key is understanding. I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity and maybe encouraged you to rethink our societal norms around connection.